Hello, and welcome to another episode of Nick at 9Yaps, where we interview founders at various stages of their entrepreneurial journey to hopefully inspire, maybe to educate, or just entertain anyone that's interested in business and startups, maybe wants to start one themselves. Today, we have Matthew on from Skunk Skin. He has a very incredible story. He has been in the industry for a little bit longer than some of us have, so he is a great speaker, and it's a great episode. We're getting better at these. I think this is the third one now that we're publishing. We're getting better every time, trying to get as consistent as possible to kind of meet all different types of founders to just entertain, educate, or inspire others. So hope you enjoy the video, and I'll see you at the end. So, okay, cool. Welcome, Matthew. Thank you for coming on. Why don't you start off with a little introduction about yourself, and then we'll take it from there.
What's up, Nick? Thanks for having me. My name is Matthew Tesvich. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm a University of Georgia grad, and I started a company called Skunk Skin. They're socks that don't smell. You can wear them for a day, a week, or a month, and they won't stink.
That's pretty cool. So, one question I like to ask everybody that comes on is what is something that you would recommend a student entrepreneur not to do?
I would say try to do it all on your own. Entrepreneurship is very lonely, and it's something that often we internalize and think we have to do it all ourselves. But the resources in the university system now are fantastic. They have free money for us, they have free advisement. A lot of times there's free legal or accounting. And so that would be my advice is don't try to do it all on your own. Ask for help. Talk to people who've been there. Mentors are so, so important, and they've changed the trajectory of my life and my business.
So yeah, speaking about not doing it alone, what does your team structure look like?
So I'm the only full-time employee, and then we have a few contractors on the team, and then we're working with agencies. So to keep things lean, we're working with different agencies on the Amazon side, the SEO side, and then seasonally we'll add some different other agencies in there as well.
So what's your primary role in the company? Because some of the other entrepreneurs that I've interviewed, they're either like the first 6 months or first year of their business. So I know you've been established for a couple years. So what does that structure look for you?
Yeah, so I'm the CEO. I'm still wearing a lot of hats right now, but I would say the big thing are logistics, making sure that we're getting shipments in, doing product development, and then driving sales, right? Whether that's B2B, whether that's driving e-com, it's the business. Profit is oxygen for a business, right? And so if there's no profit coming in, you don't have revenue, you don't have sales, business dies. And so that's really primary objective number one is how do we make sure we have something to sell and how do we sell it?
That's pretty cool. So what is your favorite hat to wear?
That's a good question.
Okay.
I will say my least favorite hat is finance. Finance and
Oh
accounting
yeah.
are not my favorite hats to wear. There's some days I really like the creative side of doing the marketing and all. And I mentioned to you earlier, I'm really impressed with your social media. Sometimes I wish I had that skill set that you have. So I enjoy the creativity there. I think it's fun to come up with campaigns and come up with fun emails and social media posts. But I would say I'm probably best at doing logistics, planning there, operating all the inventory. What does that look like? Projecting for the future. And I'd say ultimately that's probably my favorite hat to wear.
That's that's pretty cool. Yeah, the finance hat is definitely not the most fun. I mean, like for startups, you really only have to keep track of income and expenses. But something that we're learning is that if you start bringing more people on your team, or even if you want to pay yourself, there's like a certain way to do it. Of course, there's everybody knows that there's a lot of write-offs that you could take advantage of. But yeah, it is definitely tricky to navigate. But a lot of colleges, or I'm not sure how it is in Georgia, but in Florida, there's a whole like nonprofit department that actually helps out with that. So
It's awesome. Yeah, there's
uh,
a lot of great programs within the university system.
yeah, and then you mentioned mentors. What does that kind of look like for you? Do you have like one mentor? Do you have mentors for different things to help you out with your business? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, good question. I think a mistake I made early on was I mistook what being busy versus being effective and being efficient. And so I would fill up my calendar talking to different mentors. I would do these different pitch competitions and meet these different people within University of Georgia, other schools, and I'd jump on calls with them, and they were all super successful, right, in whatever they did. And I said, oh, like this guy knows what he's doing, this girl knows what she's doing. I need to listen to them. And what I found is I started to get conflicting advice. One person would say to do one thing, another person would say to do another, and then I would get stuck. And so what I had to do is I had to start narrowing it down and say, who am I going to go to with what advice and who is going to be kind of like my key one, two, or three. And so I like to have three key advisors around me at all times. And then in other departments, I've got the finance advisor, we've got the accounting advisor, we've got sales and creative and et cetera, et cetera. But I would say I've got three around me at all times who specialize in different fields. And those are the people that I trust, that I lean on. I send weekly KPIs to them. That way they know what's going on in the business. They can help. They can open doors if needed and say, hey, something we got, something good happening here or something bad. And this is how I would navigate.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So you mentioned that you've had conflicting advice. Do you have an example that you could share, or is that private information?
Actually, I do have an example that I could share. So I was a part of this accelerator program, I think when maybe when I was in college or I just finished college, and I had somebody tell me, you've got to run Facebook ads. You got to run Facebook ads. And I was like, "Ah, I don't know how to run the Facebook ads." And I said, it doesn't matter. You got cash in the bank, spend money, you'll figure it out. Then I had another one who's another advisor who said, do not run Facebook ads. You need to build a system organically, very similar to what you preach, Nick, about, don't spend money on marketing. Start to build your audience, start to build your following, get the organic traction first, and then everything else will come after that. And so that was an example of like, what do I do? The incubator's telling me one thing, and then I've got an advisor that I trust that's been with me for multiple years that's saying a completely different thing. What direction do I go? Who do I go with? Do I risk getting kicked out of this program? What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean that's a pretty good point you make. I mean, doing any type of advertising is very tricky. If you're just starting off, I definitely don't recommend dumping a ton of money. But like you mentioned, having some money in the bank, then it's like, oh, I could spend money on marketing. So that's that. So that's pretty interesting. Because yeah, I mean, you could do a lot of different things on your own without spending a penny, but then it gets to a point in your business where like you kind of have to reinvest into it with advertising specifically. That it's kind of tricky to find that balance. So.
Absolutely. At what point do you think you'll be starting to advertise?
That's a good question. So we actually tried doing some paid advertising, and because what we do is so hyper local, like we give discounts to students in a very specific area. Sometimes it's nothing more than a couple miles. So we were spending money on advertising, like I think it was like $40 for maybe 14,000 views. I honestly forgot how much it is, but whatever it was, we were running into the problem where it was showing the same ad to the same person like 5 or 6 times. So it was kind of like annoying, if you have a campaign that's lasting 2 weeks and then the person seeing it 5 or 6 times, that can get very annoying. So we stopped that, but to a point that we would have to start spending a lot of money on advertising, I think it would be when we expand. So, like, say we have a college all the way in California, obviously that's the opposite side of the United States. Maybe we would do some type of paid ads, but then again, it gets tricky because there's only a certain mile ring around each college that you really gotta decide. Like I don't know, maybe you spend like a very low budget on a certain video, and then you spend some budget on another video, so at least they're seeing different content. So not in the near future, but maybe a couple of years down the road. So if I can get as much stuff at zero cost, that's kind of the goal.
Hey, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yes, exactly.
On that campaign that you mentioned about people getting hit 5 or 6 times, were you boosting an Instagram post or were you running a campaign within Meta or Google?
So yeah, that's a good question to give some more context. So that was just boosting a post. Now I've looked at the Meta Business Suite and it looks crazy. I think I was all the way down to the point where I was about to like send a campaign on there, but I couldn't find where to limit how many times it shows each user. I'm not sure if I wasn't spending enough or if the audience reach wasn't enough, but I never found the option to like only show it to the viewer a certain amount of times. ChatGPT, I think, told me that it could. I might have watched some YouTube videos. I have no idea. It gets confusing. So in the end, I was spending so much time on it, and I just said forget it. So.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Something cool with the new, and I know this isn't about Meta ads, but something cool with the new Andromeda update, and I don't know when that would have been, but I think back in March is when they launched this. It's all about showing new content, new creative to the audience, right? And so when we put in our primary text or when we put in our creative, you put in multiple creatives. So it's all different variations, it's all different primary text, and that helps because the user that's viewing it, A, you can A/B test and you can see what works and cut off the spin on stuff that's not, and B, the person viewing the ad is going to get different ads, and that way they don't get the creative fatigue.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I've known a little bit about that, but like I said, I am more of the business guy. I'm not the technical guy. I look at that and I'm like, wow, this is something to learn another day. Because I could spend so many hours on it. Even this podcast, we actually have a guy that's helping us film it, and it's like, wow, I could figure out how to do all the editing, and I mean, I do some editing, of course, for the social media, but it gets to a point where it's like I just got to do it later.
Yeah.
I think I spent like 4 hours trying to get this microphone set up because we had it set up correctly for the in-person podcast, but then all of a sudden I came online and it's like, oh my goodness, I got this background feedback, I got all these problems. So that there are a lot of good tools out there that I do have to start utilizing eventually when we're ready. So
No,
well,
absolutely.
now to take it back, I want to learn a little bit more about your story. So like, can you tell me the origin of your business? You could definitely talk about the logo. I love the logo. So why don't you start off with that?
Thank you. Yeah. So I think this all started out of COVID. I believe it was either end of 2020 or beginning of 2021. I was the intention was to play baseball at University of Georgia, so I was left-handed pitcher. I sat low 90s, top 96, and thought I had the world figured out. Right, I was going to go play SEC baseball, then I was going to get drafted. I was already talking to some pro scouts, and I'm like, man, this is going to be cool. I'm going to be able to live out my dream of being a professional baseball player. Fast forward, I was. This is part of my testimony too. I'm a Christian, and I felt convicted one day. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. My kind of as a kid, I thought, I want to be a CEO during the day. I wanted to play for the Atlanta Braves at night. And so I started to feel more and more conflicted about, do I want to be an entrepreneur? Do I want to keep playing baseball? I kept feeling this kind of internal tug. And so one day I was talking to my buddy Matt about it, and he said, dude, you need to pray about it. You need to pray a bold prayer and ask God. And so I literally said, God, if you don't want me to play baseball, I said, you need to make it clear. You need to close the door. You need to open the door to entrepreneurship or what you want me to do. Otherwise, you know, open the door to baseball and make it happen. And so the very next day, I was throwing a bullpen and my velocity was down like 20 miles an hour. I couldn't hit the catcher in the mitt. My arm felt really fatigued, almost like you just had like a super long workout and then you didn't get much sleep, right? It almost felt like you got hit by a bus. There was no physical pain, but I just felt very fatigued. And so I ended up getting an MRI and I had a slap tear on my left side. I had a 12 to 5 tear on my right labrum and I had shredded my UCL. So I was like, wow, God closed the door. I felt peace there, and he made that clear. And so a few days later, my roommate Dylan at University of Georgia, he brought home this pink towel in the kitchen, which I later found out was gray. I'm colorblind, but I thought it was hot pink. And I said, Dylan, why do we have a hot pink towel in the kitchen, dude? Like, where did this come from? And he said, my aunt gave it to me. It's antibacterial. You can literally cut raw chicken, wipe your hands on this towel, and then it'll be clean. And I thought that was so fascinating. I didn't believe it. I started doing research because I always had stinky feet growing up. It was kind of the joke in the house was I couldn't eat dinner with the family until I took my socks off. And so I started thinking, I'm like, if this thing can kill salmonella, I bet it can kill odor-causing bacteria on your feet. And so for the next 18 months, I broke down the towel, worked with manufacturers all over the world. We got probably 50, 60, 70 samples shipped in from, I mean, anywhere and everywhere you can imagine. It was crazy. It was really crazy. I got a very quick lesson in logistics and manufacturing and all that good stuff. It was a lot of failures, and I just kept thinking about Edison with the light bulb. Every failure is one step closer to success. And so, long story short, year and a half later, we get a pair of socks that works. I get the manufacturer to send me more, sent it to my athlete buddies at Clemson, Georgia Tech, different schools. I said, take these things to your hardest workout, do not wash them, see if you can make them smell. And everybody gave me the same advice. They said, or not advice, but the same feedback. They said, these are the most comfortable socks I've ever worn. Where can I get more? And they do not stink. My teammates are no longer complaining about my stinky feet. And so I spent all the money I had at that point. It was like $23,000 on socks. And I had tens of thousands of socks that I had to sell now, and I had no money. And so to your point, Nick, again, how do we get eyeballs? How do we sell without money? Everyone said Facebook ads is how you do e-com, and I knew there had to be a different way. And so I started asking myself, how can I? Because when we say I can't do something, you automatically shut your brain off. So I started asking myself, how can I? I said, how can I get as many eyeballs as possible for little to no money? And the first thing I thought of was the news. And so I started reaching out to different news groups, local Atlanta affiliates, Athens, etc. and we started getting local press. Then we started getting regional press. And then one of the stories that we did out of Athens got picked up nationwide 2 days after we launched, and we were on the front cover of USA Today from Portland, Oregon to Portland, Maine on Black Friday in 2022. We had sold hundreds of pairs of socks. We sold out. It was the biggest blessing. It was the biggest confirmation that I was on the right track. And I mean, it was so cool. I woke up at like 5 o'clock that morning and saw we already had like 15 orders, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what is going on? I don't even know these. This is the first time I saw that we had orders from people I didn't know who they were, and so from then on, we were. By the way, we were Oxox at the time, and so from then on, we kept pushing. We did a lot of pitch competitions. We ended up raising $250,000 doing non-dilutive pitch competitions, giving up no equity. It was a lot of fun. I got to meet people. I got to meet some of my mentors today. It was a huge blessing. Georgia was fantastic in that endeavor and helping us get around the country with that, crafting our pitch, honing our pitch. And then we were fortunate enough to get selected for Amazon Prime's Buy It Now, which is very similar to Shark Tank. They created their own version of Shark Tank. A lot of the same guests and judges were on there. And we ended up being the youngest contestant. We won, and we had to rebrand because Oxox, we couldn't get that trademark. And so days before we went live, we're like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And I said, you know what? Let's take a big swing. We're Oxox right now. People don't know what that means. How do we get the boldest, edgiest name that when somebody hears it, they have no other option but to say, wait, what? What did you say? Because so often we don't even know what pair of socks we're wearing. We have our favorite pair of underwear or shirt or shorts or leggings, but we don't have a favorite pair of socks. And so we decided to go with Skunk Skin. We went live. Everybody loved it on the show. We got good feedback. And then I ended up flying to China for a month to directly with our manufacturer and get everything ironed out before the show went live. And we did our full rebrand, and the rest was kind of history.
There is a lot to unpack there. I mean, that's a great story. I mean, that's exactly why I do something like this. I mean, even for me listening to it, I mean, I'm sure other people are gonna love that story. That is very inspirational. Just to give like a little timeline. So how long did you go from like testing different materials out, like just trying to make the product to actually launching it, and then I know you said that you got a lot of news. I got a lot of news visibility. So what's the timeline really from that and then where you are right now?
I think it would have been early 2021 through in very end of 2022 is the timeline of reverse engineering the towel, getting initial samples, testing the samples. So it was about a year and a half, 2 years for that. And then as far as the media attention, we still try to get media attention. It's a lot tougher now just because like we've already exhausted a lot of those connections and we've already gotten stories. They don't typically want to do the same story twice unless something's really changed. But that was a huge key to our success. I mean, for the first year and a half, we were pushing that. And every time we'd win new pitch competitions or something exciting would happen in the business, I'd call them up and say, "Hey, Joe, we got the newest, most exciting story for you." And then we were fortunate enough to get another TV appearance or newspaper appearance or blog article.
It's amazing. Can you tell me more about you actually going to China and meeting your distributor? Because I think unless I'm wrong, that's very unique. Like I've never heard of someone actually going there to meet with the distributor. So can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it was cool because we had been talking to these people for 3 years up until that point, and so it was really cool to meet them in person and meet the team that was actually making our socks. And I think one thing I do want to preface is it's so often we see stuff in the media, and I'm like hearing podcasts and stuff about, oh, this is what Chinese manufacturing is like. It's like a sweatshop and this, that, and the other. And that may be true in other places, but I was so impressed. Everybody was so kind. I got to meet their family, and it was just it was not at all what I assumed it might be, just hearing like U.S. media and politics and things like that. So everyone was just so down to earth, so genuine there. They're very much about community and relationships, and so we had a lot of good meals together, a lot of good laughs together, and it's a different world over there, right? I mean, it's beautiful in its own way. It's a gorgeous country. They have so many different, and pardon my stomach growling. I had an early breakfast this morning, so I'm getting hungry, but. Um, they've got so many different landscapes, and it was cool to be boots on the ground and actually working with them, feeling the materials, seeing the colors, showing them what we wanted our seams to be like and how we wanted our stitches to look, and small things like arch support and how we wanted that to hug our feet. It made it so much more efficient being there in person with them, and it made it special being able to actually be a part of like this incubation of the new product.
Well, that's a great story. Yeah, yeah. I mean, having someone like that to trust to make your product is, I mean, like, what's something that you could even ask for that's better? That's really amazing. So talking more about your product, did you have to change anything major about the sock? Was there something that you thought was going to work, but then that you had to change it in the end?
I would say the biggest mistake we made was we had no data when we started, and so I did an even split of like small socks, medium socks, large socks when I first started, versus maybe making predictions as to what the customers would want. And so we quickly sold out of some SKUs, and we're still sitting on other SKUs that we bought in our, I mean, we've bought dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of, more socks, like more orders of socks since then. And we're still sitting on some of our original socks just because they didn't move. Not everybody wears certain sizes. And so that was one lesson I learned. So I very quickly learned to look at the data on making new orders. And then when we first started too, we got samples of like a nylon-based sock and we got samples of a cotton-based sock. And I like both of them. I really like both of them. And so I talked to our manufacturer about it, and they're like, "Why not just do both?" And we ended up doing both for a while, and then I decided like, why do both? Why not just narrow it down? It's essentially the same thing. It's just different materials. And so we chose to go with cotton. It's better for the environment. It's a better sock. It's better quality. I mean, both socks are good quality, but we found customers slightly like the preferred cotton. And so we decided to narrow down because, the riches are in the niches, and hone in and focus. And that's really the difference between a laser and a light bulb is focus. And I love that quote. I know it's so cliche, but focus is so important. And I see so many young entrepreneurs, and I was at fault at this at one point too, but it's so easy to want to expand and do everything. But at some point, you got to focus on one thing. You got to grow that one thing, and then you can expand, because otherwise you get distracted and you've got your money split and scattershot in so many different directions.
Now, if you never went down the entrepreneur route, do you think you would have enjoyed doing professional baseball more, or what you're doing right now more? If it was like meant to be.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. I haven't been asked that. That's a really good question. I think I always knew I was going to be an entrepreneur. I thought I was going to build a platform from baseball. I think I would have really enjoyed one thing I really miss is that team camaraderie and the competitiveness of baseball. And so I still try to get out and do sports as much as I can, but it's not that same level of intensity, right? Because it's recreational. So I miss that significantly. For a while, it was tough for me to go to baseball games and things just because I would see my friends out there, playing college baseball, and then they graduated and start playing minor league baseball. And now some of them are in major league baseball. And it's like, wow, like we played together not too long ago. I mean, we were on the same team, and now like they're in the big leagues, and I'm so happy for them. And like that is one of the toughest things you can do physically, and just like staying healthy and all that stuff. And so I'm so pumped for them. But a part of me, it was tough to watch baseball for a while because of that. Um, but to circle back to your question, I would have enjoyed playing baseball, but I think that I think ultimately this is more of there's a physical challenge of there's a lot of late nights, and then there's a mental challenge too of you have to adapt and be a mental athlete as well. And so I like that. I think this is fun, and I think I'm making more of an impact on people. It was very self-glorifying to play baseball, and with this, we are changing so many lives. I mean, I, we literally have gotten 3, 4 emails that have said we've saved marriages because of our socks. And it's funny and it's crazy. And I've called those customers, and they're like, we're not kidding. Like my wife and my husband was ready to leave me because we stunk so bad. So
Wow, that's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. I mean, that's a pretty great story. Yeah, I feel like you might have, maybe even if you've done professional baseball for like a certain amount of time, there would have been an endpoint where then you were like, okay, now I want to start my business, and then even down the line, you might even think this as well, that starting the business as early as possible is really important. That's something that I stress to a lot of people too. Like if you want to start a business, don't think about it for a long time. Don't plan it. Just go and do it. So
it's
so
great
that's
advice. Just go and do it. Exactly. You just got to jump. You'll learn to swim. You just got to jump.
Yes. So talking more about your product, have you ever had any returns? I know sometimes on Shark Tank they talk about like your return percentage. How have you adapted to that if that's something that you've experienced?
Yeah, I think this is a really good lesson in entrepreneurship, and that's a really good question. Are you familiar with the MVP, the minimum viable product?
Yes, yes.
So, Yeah, so minimum viable product is getting a product to market as quickly as possible. I heard a quote from somebody that said, this isn't my quote, but if you're not embarrassed about your product when you first launch it, then you haven't launched it soon enough. And I very much have a little bit of a perfectionist nature of myself, right? So I wanted everything to be perfect in the sock. I mean, in the sock that our first sock, we did 7 or 8 revisions before we launched it. And by that point, our manufacturer literally said, dude, I don't think there's anything else we can do. Like, you just gotta either you want it or you don't. And so I say all that. Um, we had a good product when we launched. We're super blessed that we have a good manufacturer. I mean, I trust them. They are rock stars. The quality has always been fantastic. And so our return rate is significantly less than industry average. Now, that's not to say we haven't had issues of fulfillment and shipping the orders because we've done different as we've grown and expanded, we've had to, grow from me doing the orders myself or my family helping out the garage to going with professional groups. And so that's created some bottlenecks or some issues as we've kind of done that transfer. But as far as returns, thankfully we've not had any significant issues there. And product quality is one of the biggest things because, I mean, as you know, word of mouth marketing is the only truly exponential form of marketing. As more people get socks in their feet, the more they're going to talk about it, the more they're going to brag and show their friends. And if our quality's not there, then we don't really have a business. We got to have the product quality first. And so I actually ran into our 15th customer the other day. This would have been about a month or so ago. It was at my buddy's birthday party. And he said, "Do you remember me?" And I said, "Yes, yeah, you were one of our first customers." And he had bought our socks before we had even launched. He was a pre-order. And I remember being nervous at that time because I was like, is our product good? Is this going to work for him? We don't have our socks yet. He's paid me money and we don't even have our socks yet. Is the manufacturer even going to ship it to me? I had all these thoughts and worries in my head. And he said, he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, "Buddy, I just want to let you know you have the best product." He said, "I've been wearing your socks for 4 years and I still wear them and they are still like I when I opened them out the package." And that meant so much. It just goes to show you that the quality was there and it meant a lot that he said that. And so I say all that product quality is super important, and that's one of our key principles.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And then even advice to other people, if you ever feel uncertainty or you need like a little motivation, get feedback from your customers. Like even for what I do, I'm on campus, I'm tabling, sometimes I'm by myself, just sitting outside, and it does feel weird. But then when you do have your customers coming up saying that they love your product, it's really good. It's motivational. It's great. So that's awesome. And then I know, yeah. Do you plan on expanding your products in terms of like different types? Do you have, yeah, like what's the next 5 years looking like for your company and for your product?
Anywhere that people stink and that your clothes touch your skin, we can create products to address that. And so that's the ultimate vision. Imagine we see how harmful these sprays and bacteria, or excuse me, deodorants and things are for your skin. Imagine if you no longer had to wear that and you could just wear an apparel product that knocked it out. So that's the long-term vision. We're going to continue to expand our sock line. We're going to continue to expand the apparel line. We learned our lesson early, so we're going to be doing data and talking to customers and figuring out what they want to see next. And we will absolutely be expanding.
It's a really good point. Have you ever thought about getting some brands to partner with, like specifically in the sport industry or something like that?
Yeah, we've already been doing some partnerships. So we've done some stuff where we'll either white label or we'll collab with brands to help them create a sock and that doesn't smell for their established brand already. And then we've actually got something that'll be coming out end of next week. We are partnering with a pretty major company, and we worked on this for about a year. We have a huge campaign coming out where it's got all sorts of fun videos and graphics and creative on that we're going to be doing on TV and Meta, etc. So that'll be a lot of fun, and I'm excited to announce that here in about a week and a half.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's always exciting having a lot of things to look forward to. I mean, it's good. It's good to try to keep your calendar busy. Having something to look forward to all the time. So that is pretty cool. Now going back to mentors, is there something that you wish a mentor could help you with, maybe in the past or even right now that you're not receiving, or maybe that it's impossible for a mentor to give to you?
In the age of AI, I think, and with phones and iPads and technology and answers at our fingertips, I think it's so easy to think that things are instant and expect this instant gratification and these quick little dopamine hits. And even I fall into the trap of seeing these entrepreneurs on Instagram where they show their story in 15 seconds or 30 seconds or 60 seconds. And you never see the hard times. You see their highlight reel. There's a story I remember well, growing up, he used an example. He said, we see other people's highlights on social media, and yet we know our lowlights of things that happen behind closed doors, behind the curtain, in our families, at home. And we compare that, and it creates this mismatch. And so, I think it's easy to want all the answers and want to just ask somebody who's been there and done that and been successful, like, how do you do it? But the thing with entrepreneurship, as I'm sure you've already figured that one out, Nick, is there's not one path for everybody. And I tend to think very yes or no, black or white, one or zero, and it's not, it's gray. And so it's very easy to get bogged down and caught up in technology and this, again, these instant gratifications and these answers and say, this worked for somebody else. Why isn't this working for me? Because we all have our own path. And so I would say that's something that would be, quote, very difficult or impossible for an advisor. They can guide you, but ultimately we need to take the ball and run.
That's a really good point. Yeah, one thing that I wish I can get more help with is definitely like in the AI industry, because you can kind of get lost in time trying to make maybe something more efficient or maybe a tool that can help you, reach your goals faster. But sometimes you just kind of have to like you just have to learn, figure it out, spend maybe a little bit time out of your week learning something new. Even our app developer, he's using like a different type of AI every single month, and I can't keep up with it. I still just use the basic chat gpt. I mean, I pay for the premium now. But yeah, it's just like there's so many tools out there. There's always things that you could use, but it's good just to kind of like use what works, adapt to things as time goes on. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
We're seeing growth at incredible levels right now with technology and AI expanding so quickly.
It's pretty cool. Yes. So what is a challenge that you currently have right now? Like in terms of growth, what do you think is a challenge that you have right now?
We ran into some out of stock issues back during Christmas time, and it's funny. Here I was saying logistics are one of my favorite things, and then we're out of stock during the busiest time of the year. But it ended up being a blessing in disguise. We found some kind of broken mechanisms in communication within the team. We figured out that we do not have inventory on hand as quickly as we thought, and so we were able to figure a lot of that out. We were still able to have a strong, successful, Q4 Christmas season, but I would say that would be a challenge that we've had, and now we're still waiting on inventory to come back in stock. Thankfully, it's going to be back into this week, early next week, and we'll be able to. We're already starting to get pre-orders going and get people excited again, and we're kind of trying to use this to our advantage. But that would definitely be a challenge, and then continuing to grow and scale on Meta, right? I think Meta is one of the biggest foundations for ecom, and again, I say that, but organic, you got to get the organic going first. But once you do that, to really scale and get the growth, it's Meta, and it's how do you get enough creative constantly? How do you do more testing, more testing, more testing? And in the age with AI and so much stuff being out there, how do you get in front of people? How do you get their attention? How do you show them that you've got a product that actually works when so often we see these drop shippers and things that's cheap, it's knockoffs, it doesn't actually work. And so I would say that's probably the biggest things we're focusing on right now, and just continuing to drive profitable growth through it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of knockoffs for everything. How do you deal with that type of competition? Do you have a specific example now that you're like competing with another product, but because yours has maybe a better quality, that's like your advantage?
We've had some ripoffs on Amazon, or I guess it wouldn't be Amazon. We've had a couple people try to copy our sites and or like use our listings on different knockoff websites. And so we've got to use our trademarks and our lawyer to send cease and desist and things like that to say, hey, you're using our mark. This is a mark infringement, and try to take that down in the sense of like true competition. Um, a lot of people use chemicals. We don't use any chemicals in our products. People don't believe that it actually works, and that's where we need to show the testimonials and show that validity in the customer reviews and the video reviews showing improving. We have a guarantee saying like, hey, if you can make these things stink, send them back. Like we will sniff them. We joke that we'll eat them if you can make them smell, because we our socks do not smell. And so staying away from the chemicals, because chemicals are bad for the environment, they're bad for you, and they wash out the sock. And using our technology, you don't deal with that issue, and the socks are actually effective. And so we go back to the product. If you have a good product, product will win. And so you got to have the marketing, you got to have the other pieces too, but at a fundamental level, you got to have a product that you can build a business on. You got to have that firm foundation, and we've got that firm foundation with our product.
That's a pretty good that's a pretty good point. I definitely appreciate that that you don't use chemicals and stuff like that. I mean, I'm very big with organic food, you know, even like the clothing, I like to get 100% cotton. So I could definitely appreciate that, and I think that's definitely going to help you, like you said, long term. I mean having a sustainable product that's good like that is a thing that's trending right now. So that's definitely good that you take that swing. I remember because I actually used to play baseball in elementary school, and yeah, for quite a while, and I would use those balls that you put in like your shoe, like
Oh yeah, yeah.
what they were
The
called.
sneaker balls.
And yeah, yeah. And like those work, but then again, it's putting harmful chemicals in your shoe. You know, sometimes they absorb the smell, but then they also give out a smell. So, you know, and then you got to buy new ones. So I do like how your approach like solves the problem with the sock. So that's pretty awesome. Now, you said that social media isn't your strong point. What is your current outreach method to get new customers?
It's a little bit of everything. So we've got meta ads. I think again, going back to like the black or white, it so often I thought if we do this, then everything will work. But it's a conglomeration of everything. And one thing that I invested in 2025 was coaching and mentorship. And so I've got like the free mentors and stuff around me, but actually paying for coaching to do audits of our site, audits of everything we're doing, our email flows, etc. And the biggest thing I learned was that one thing helps support another. So our organic social is almost like an extension of our website. It shows people what we do. It shows people fun stories, laughs, things like that. Ads help get people's attention, and it goes into the in front of the customers that we want to try to get their attention. They come to our website, but if we're not capturing that customer information, then it's essentially a loss. It's a wash because often they'll come to our site and then they'll Google us and say, "Hey, are these guys legit? Does it actually work? Reviews, etc." And then we need to have our flows and email stuff set up so that way we can caption if there's a site abandoned, cart abandoned, etc. Or hey, maybe now's not the right time to buy. I just bought socks for my kid, but 6 months from now when those Walmart cheap socks wear through, I need to get these Skunk Skin socks because this seems legit. And that's where having the email flows and keeping them up to date with what we're doing, it stays front of mind. And so it's a conglomeration of everything, and everything kind of works in tandem to rise and lift the ships.
That's a really good point. So I'm running out of questions here. So you mentioned about pitch competitions. What is something that you changed from one pitch competition to another? Something maybe that you've learned that was like really important. You're like, oh wow, this really has to change.
This is the first time I'm ever saying this publicly, so I'll say this for you. Our very first pitch competition was for $2,500, and it was an accelerator program at Georgia. And we had no product yet. We just had samples. We had just done pre-orders, and I think I just posted on Instagram or Facebook or something. I might not have even had Facebook at the time. I don't even know how we got the initial orders, but it was friends and family that bought it. We got like, I don't know, 15 orders. And I remember we had some tough competition. We had done $500 in sales at that point, and there was a kid in our program that had done $70,000 in sales. There was another group that was doing like $6,000 to $8,000 a month in sales. And so, how were we going to compete with those guys? And so, we had to tell the story. And storytelling is so important in business. It's so important when you're pitching for money. It's so important when you're on the elevator explaining your company to somebody. Storytelling is what holds attention. And so, what we did is I put together the most bare bones. We were doing a practice competition the day before the real one. And I put together the most bare bones garbage PowerPoint. It had a white background. It had text that was misspelled. It had clip art on there. I made it like 3 slides. I started stuttering when I was giving the practice presentation. And my teacher literally said, "This is awful. We're considering not letting you compete tomorrow. You better be up late tonight and actually work on a real deck." And so the advantage was everybody else was using their real decks. And so they were showing moves that they were going to do. They were, you know, showing all their cards, and I had shown none of them. Again, that kind of bulldog competitive mentality. Well, I already had a superstar deck that I had built in the background. And so now I was able to add some of these other elements. And I was rehearsing that, practicing that. I was listening to it on repeat in the shower, in the car, wherever, at the gym, wherever I was. Using Nick Saban's quote, it was practice until you can't get it wrong, not practice until you get it right. And so it's practice, 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 reps, reps, reps. And so fast forward to the competition, I was nervous, but I went up there. I was the first person to pitch. I still remember it. It was October 13th, I believe. And we were the first of 5 teams to pitch. And we, not to use a pun here, but we knocked everybody's socks off. We crushed the pitch. We did fun things. We got the crowd excited. We got them engaged, raise their hand, nailed the questions. Every question that we had practiced, they had passed. I mean, it just ended up being perfect. And then when the other people started pitching, they couldn't believe it because they thought that I was weak. They thought that it was cartoonish. They thought I was going to stutter up there. And so not only did it intimidate them to some degree, but they were nervous, right? It was everybody's first pitch. And so the judges, the teachers, they all came together and we ended up winning that $2,500. They saw value in our product. They saw that we had a place to go. Bob, who unfortunately passed away about a year ago from cancer, he founded Evo Shield, which is a huge baseball company, and he was one of my biggest mentors, biggest supporters. I'll never forget, he came up to me and he said, he was the head of entrepreneurship at Georgia. He said, "You're going to build the next Evo Shield one day." And I remember I literally started tearing up. I'm like, wow, like we don't even have a product yet and you're saying that to me. So it was really special. I got to sit through with him through the rest of the other pitches after we had pitched. And I would say that's kind of how it's evolved, you know, not revealing our cards, given enough, but keeping that edge, right? Keeping that sharp athlete mentality and keeping that edge. I think that's so important. And I would relate sports as a big part of success for the future.
It's a really great story. So with the funding that you received, what was like some of the first things that you had to spend money on to make the company grow? I know that there's a lot of people that spend money on advertising. I think I've heard that at pitch competitions they don't like you to just use the funding just to promote your products. So what did you use your funding for
Yeah, good
in
question.
the very
Some of that was testing product expansion, right? Because we had ankle socks, but we were in a cold season, so we wanted to release crew socks. So some of that was doing R&D on new products and expanding the lines there. A lot of it was IP and working with lawyers to try to create that mode of IP to fortify, make sure other people couldn't copy our designs, trademarks, etc. And honestly, dude, we blew a lot of money, not frivolously, but in a sense of not knowing what we were doing. I remember we paid like $10,000 a month for this group that said that they could do PR outreach for us. And we got locked into an extended contract. I think we talked it down to 3 months, but there's a group out of California. We were paying them $10,000 a month, and they said that they were going to get us crazy sales. And I believed them because PR is what had worked for us in the past. I mean, we had done over 6 figures in sales by this point, all spending no money on marketing, and everything was free PR. So I said, if these guys are pros at it, then they're going to be able to crush. And they got us like, I don't know, 10, 12 orders total in 3 months. I mean, if that, we got on cheap blogs that were out of India. I could see they were using like VAs and stuff. Nobody was going to the site. They was getting no site traffic. The influencers and stuff that they were sending stuff to were not applicable at all to what we were doing. The media that attention that we were getting did not work. And so thankfully we were able to get the contract. We didn't have any like void issues. But that's an example of like we learned our lesson the hard way. People say that they're there to help, but not everybody's there to help. Not everybody has good intentions. Not everybody knows what they're doing. And so, or it could have also just not been a good fit. And so that was an example of where we spent money. There's been other examples like that too. We tried to do Facebook ads. We spent tens of thousands of dollars trying to figure out Facebook ads, getting the best media buyers. At the end of the day, I learned it's all about creative, and I wasn't giving them the creative they needed. And so it ultimately fell on me. And here I was thinking it was an issue with them, but it was an issue with me. And so I learned a lot of expensive lessons, but it allowed us to do that, right? We had money in the bank to be able to learn those lessons and figure it out while I was young. That's part of entrepreneurship. Fail quick, fail fast, fail cheap.
Yeah, I think that's great advice for anyone starting. I'm glad I didn't spend $10,000 learning, and mine was just a $40 mistake. But in those hard times, did you ever think that you were going to give up, or I guess any part of your journey, did you ever have that feeling, and then what kind of pulled you out of that, if that's something you've experienced?
Yeah, I think so often we think entrepreneurship is always up and to the right, and we see this stuff on social media, and everybody's just posting their wins, and it just looks perfect, and everybody's like, "Wow, you've got life figured out." And that's not the case. We're living as entrepreneurs. We live lean. I mean, I love looking at the Reddit guy's story where they were sleeping on mattresses on the floor, eating ramen every night, running like cables to like a central power bank since they were like not able to afford power. It's something like that. And so I say all that like don't comparison's the thief of joy. Don't look at social media. We've had several times where I'm like things are not going to work out. We had a pitch competition where we won a lot of money and we were promised a lot of money and then they pulled out on us and did not keep their word, unfortunately, and that put us in a tough bind. We've had other situations financially where we were in a cash crunch. Seasonally, we mispredicted, and the first couple of years of a startup are tough. They're really tough. You're just trying to survive. And so there were times where I was like, wow, like I think we're gonna go under, or this might not work out. And I just prayed. I got on my knees, and I literally said, God, like I'm relinquishing this to you. It's your business. It's your hey, it's your future with this. And I said, if you want this to happen, like do your will. And then every single time, it's amazing. He will bless us and open a door where a door is meant to be opened. And so I don't know what the future holds. You know, it's ultimately up to him. It could all end tomorrow, but I'm trusting him and trying to be a good steward of what he's given me.
Yeah, wow, that's very that's it's very inspirational. um and then it's very inspirational here. I'm I'm trying to put myself back together. That's interesting. Interesting. Wow, it's a lot to think about. You know, I try not to prepare questions. You know, I'm trying to I'm trying to like listen and then prepare questions afterwards. But it's really just a great story what you're sharing. I mean it's a very unique story. I mean you've had so many years. You know, a little bit more compared to others that there's just so much to share. So, with your time that you spend, do you find yourself doing other things to kind of fill your time? A good example for myself is that I, of course, work on the business full time, but now I've started this podcast. I even help mentor other local businesses with their brand and marketing. So, do you fill your time with something like that?
Are you asking in like a professional sense in making more money, or do you say like hobbies and things?
I guess more of hobbies. So like I could always work, 14 hours a day if I want to, grow the business a lot. But I kind of wanted to like not step back, but like spend time doing other things, like yeah, doing other things, but they're still productive. So like when I mentor other local businesses, I hop on a meeting with them for 30 minutes to an hour. They tell me what's maybe wrong with their business or what they could be doing more. I kind of help them out, and then talking about it, helps me kind of strengthen my strategies and branding. And then even the podcast, I like to share my story, hear others. That helps me think in different ways, or even get better at speaking, which I'm trying to do. So, like, do you fill your time with something similar, or maybe something else?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, I think one thing I've struggled with in the past is it's so easy to focus just on the business because there's always something to do. I cannot remember the last time I was bored with nothing to do. It- I I don't know if you feel the same way, but it's been many years because there's always something pressing. There's always a fire to put out. There's always something we could be doing. There's always strategy, social media content, et cetera, that we could be putting out. And so I've had to be really intentional about taking a break. And so a couple examples of what we do. My buddies and I go on an annual mission trip. And so we'll take a week off of the business and literally not go on our devices and just serve, give back, and give glory to the Lord, right? It's serving his kingdom, expanding his kingdom. And he's blessed all of us with so much. We're all entrepreneurs. And so we'll try to go somewhere new every year, wherever we feel led to. And we'll serve in whatever they need, whether it's buying groceries or physically building something or something as simple as painting or just being there and praying with them. That's something that we like to do. I'm trying to get more involved at church and serving and leading and things like that. Um, what else do I like to do? And I love to be active, right? I love to get outside, go for walks. I try to go play softball or pickleball. I'm big in the gym. I'll go running. I think that there's so much power in being outside and being in nature, and it's so easy to get caught behind the screen. And being an MIS major, one of the things my dad told me early on before I started doing all the coding was he said, whenever you run into a coding issue, it's easy to get stuck and get frustrated and say, hey, like I gotta figure this out. He said, get up, go for a walk, even if it's 5, 10 minutes, clear your head, and so often you come back and you'll have the answer. And so that's what I try to do. I try to be intentional about that. It's a lot easier said than done. And then reading and listening to podcasts when I'm in the car. And, you learn the cool thing about podcasts is you get to be in these circles of people who you don't have physical closeness or proximity to, but you get to hear the way they think. And as everyone has heard, your friends are your net worth, your friends are who you are, your inputs are your outputs. And so by surrounding yourself with these sorts of people, you get to see how they think and you get to think like them. And I just think that's so valuable. I love listening to that stuff. And hopefully this podcast is doing the same thing. Hopefully this is inspiring somebody with that idea, that dream to go out and chase it because I think entrepreneurship is so beautiful. I think it's so much fun. And life's short. Why not live your dreams? If you've always dreamt of starting something, even if it's not entrepreneurship, if it's you got that dream that you want to chase and you want to go for it, and you're like, well, everyone else is telling me I shouldn't do it. Life is so short, and what's the worst that can happen? You fall on your face. I heard this example yesterday. We're expected to walk. Every baby's expected to walk. When you fall, the parents say, "Oh, it's okay. Get up, let's go." When does that stop happening? When are we told it's too risky, let's not fail? Why are we told to walk and that's an expectation, but living our dreams and chasing our dreams and going for it, going for the thing that we've always dreamt of, the thing we're always thinking about is so foreign in society. Why is that?
Yeah, you made a lot of great points there. One of them that I definitely want to highlight is taking little breaks. So like I always thought like, oh, you take like an hour or 30-minute break, you're kind of losing time for the business. But there's a lot of points where I'm taking those breaks and like I think of like this amazing idea. Like when I'm at the gym, I thankfully have a sauna, which is pretty nice. I'll be in there. I'm like, ooh, I got to go out and get my phone because I thought of a great idea. So I think like stepping back and kind of thinking about things, even if you're not working, like I'll take like a half day off or a day off, and something will just randomly pop in my head. So I think it's really important to take those breaks. Get out in nature, like whatever it is for that person. So that's a really good point that you made.
Sounds like you do a good job of that. That's good.
Yes, and even this is kind of part of it too. It's still in the same mindset, but you get to like relax and just take a break from work, but then still be productive. So I like filling my time with those things. So yeah, and then I mean I don't know. We're at an hour. We're pretty good, I think here. Unless you have some questions for me, I don't want to take too long. But yeah, is there anything else that you want to close with? Is a good way to put it.
What inspired you to start Nine Yaps and why did you decide to take that risk? Why did you decide to go all in? Why did you decide to go for it?
Yeah, so I was an Uber Eats driver. So I actually, so to take it back a little bit more, I was born in Connecticut, and I did 1 year of community college there, and then I moved to Florida, to go to USF. So I would be transferring as a sophomore, and I used to be an Uber Eats driver. So that would be a lot of hours, sometimes 6 to 12 hours. I like to drive, so that was really fun for me, and I had so many hours where I was just like sitting in the car thinking and thinking, and then I saw a lot of Uber Eats drivers. They had advertising on their car. I'm like, well, what a great way to make more money, instead of doing orders, because Uber Eats and DoorDash and all that stuff is nice, but sometimes like there's extra driving, or you don't make as much as you do on some days. So I wanted to find more ways to make money. So I was like, great. I'm going to get a company to advertise on my car. And what's funny is that I never fully finished pursuing that. I didn't even try to reach out to some of the other brands that other Uber Eats drivers had. But what really clicked for me is that a lot of my orders weren't going to USF students, so or to students in general. Like I think maybe 1% of my orders were actually going to students, which was kind of strange because you would think college students they're going to order a lot of food. So there's a problem there. Obviously, they were either not knowing about local businesses around campus, or maybe they weren't getting enough discount for them. So I was like, great, I'm going to reach out to these businesses that I'm picking up food from and then advertise them to students. So I started with a newsletter. I got a couple businesses on there. I started presenting that in classes, and I was getting a 20 to 30% return. Every classroom that I presented to, 20 to 30% of them were subscribing to a newsletter, which I thought was pretty strange. Like why would, like, I don't know who does that. Like I probably wouldn't have even done that myself. So yeah, with a lot of thinking, with starting to get a lot more people interested in, I even found out about some competition. So I produced an app, and then once the app came out, it really just started blowing up from there. So I guess that might be a good way to answer that question. So
That's really impressive. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a journey. I love what I do. I like that I'm doing different things like this. And yeah, like you said, I really do hope that this inspires a lot of people. It's definitely not for it's not for everybody, but I guess you don't know if it's for you unless you try. And then if you're gonna try, just go for it. You know, you got to spend long hours, you got to spend long nights, you got to sacrifice a lot of different things, but it is definitely worth it in the end. So. Awesome. All right,
Amen.
well, we will close with that. Thank you for coming, and then just stay for a little bit. I will end it, and then hopefully everything saves. So there we go.
Sweet. Thank you, sir.
So what'd you think? I think these are getting better every single time, even all the way down to the sound quality. I am still trying to figure out how to use this microphone. It is a lot more complicated than it looks. But yeah, thank you, Matthew, for coming on. You have a really great story to share. I really do enjoy making these. I hope you do as well. Please feel free to give us any feedback, something you'd like to learn, someone maybe you want to have on the podcast. But that is pretty much it. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.